All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars. It is time for a new reaction video. This week I have chosen the 1997 Cadillac Catera, a car I should have done probably a long time ago and has been requested multiple times. I thought it was time for it. So anyway, this is from our friends over at Honda 97, and it's split in two parts for some reason. We'll see how that works out, but I'll provide links to the source material here at the bottom. But as always, you and me, just going to have a conversation reminiscing a little bit back to 1997. Get comfy in your comfy chair, grab your beverage of choice, leftover decaf this morning, and let's see what Motorweek said about it when it was new.
Now, everybody knows that Cadillac owners tend to be, shall we say, mature. But over the years, Cadillac has tried to attract younger import-oriented buyers. Back in '82, there was the Cimarron, a thinly disguised Chevrolet Cavalier. And although the Cimarron sold reasonably well, Caddy's chrome-plated J car was a critical flop. Well, now Cadillac is making a mature attempt to capture a youthful following with an import of its own. This week's road test by request subject, the 97 Catera. Here's what we think of this German-made Cadillac. That's German, as in the Opel Omega MV6, General Motors' very successful European executive sedan, and the V platform on which Cadillac based this 1997 Catera. The car it hopes will capture some of the fast-growing entry and mid-level luxury market. Those buyers have been choosing among Acura, Infiniti, Lexus, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. Now they'll view a Cadillac different from the norm. Catera retains most of the Omega MV6's trim, smooth basic shape, but with new front and rear fascias. The thin chrome strip above the blacked-out Caddy family grille matches its proportions to the rest of the car. And there's no mistaking the centralized Cadillac crest. But the Catera's most contemporary styling features a rear quarter panel more akin to the Chrysler Sebring, while the C-pillar favors the elegant Mercedes-Benz E-Class. Okay,
so let's talk about the styling here. I don't know what to say exactly. I like this car. I think it is cautiously handsome. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I don't hate it by any stretch. I think that it is a good-looking car, but it looks upscale Chevy less than Cadillac. And I know that the Opel was an executive car, but Opel as a brand overall, to me, is not a BMW competitor. So this is like a really nice European Chevy. At least that's my opinion, okay? If you're from Europe, you may have a different opinion, but let us know in the comments below. So overall, I think it looks good. So in a bubble where there are no competitors, I think this is a good looking car. I think the hood is a little too sloped. It looks like a front wheel drive car to me, but it's not. And overall, I think that the styling on it is kind of handsome, but a little porky, a little thick around the middle. And I'm not casting my stones too terribly far there, but overall the car just looks kind of heavy. And it is. It's hundreds of pounds, at least 200 pounds heavier than, say, the BMW 3 Series and the Lincoln LS. And I want to compare styling to those two. Those two are much more angular, much more upright, much more flat hood. And I think both of them are fantastic looking. I'm a big fan of the styling of the Lincoln. Maybe it wasn't terribly reliable from what I understand, but that was one of my top cars of the early 2000s. I love the LS. And the BMW 3 Series, another version of a legend, fantastic looking car in my opinion. Comparing those to this just looks a little porky.
Handsome. Only at the rear does the Catera styling disappoint, looking nothing like a Cadillac or any German car either, except for the thin LED high-mounted stoplight that does remind us of the Cadillac Seville. Catera power stays even closer to its Opel sibling, specifically this 3-liter twin-cam 24-valve V6 built at GM's Ellesmere Port engine plant in England. The 54-degree Ram Air V6 develops an even 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. Power is quietly transferred to...
No. So what GM did good here with this platform is they did make it front engine, rear wheel drive. Okay, so it was competitive from that perspective with, say, the BMW. And that's what GM's going for here, right? Let's not gloss over that. When they say they want the younger buyers, they're looking for people who have got BMW or Audi or Acura on their list. Acuras are front wheel drive, but you get the point here. They went in and said, here's a rear wheel drive European platform. We can be competitive with BMW. Then they put this engine in. Now, by itself, again, in a bubble, is 200 horsepower and 192 foot-pounds terrible? No. Is it competitive? It's at the low end. The BMW 3 Series at this time made something like 225, 228, something along those lines, I think. And the Lincoln had a V6, 225-ish horsepower, something along those lines. And that's not the end of the story, of course. It's weight, transmission, performance. But this thing starts off porky and then ends up underpowered.
To the rear wheels by a computer-controlled 4-speed automatic transmission used on some BMWs. It incorporates adaptive logic to prevent gear hunting and to improve first and second gear acceleration. Plus, the driver can select normal, sport shift, or winter modes. And the result? Well, despite 300 to 400 pounds of extra weight to meet U.S. safety regulations, the 3,800-pound Catera can still manage 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds. Struts up front and a multi-link setup in the rear provide a nicely balanced chassis, giving Catera a solid, secure 100% German feel. We found it more responsive to drive on switchback roads than a C-Class Mercedes. An all-speed engine-only traction control system is standard, as are four-wheel disc brakes with a Bosch 3-channel anti-lock system. These are excellent brakes, some of the best we've ever tried.
So, interesting. Very, very positive. Very positive there. A 4-speed sounds underwhelming, used by some BMWs. Okay. Great brakes and a solid controlled feel. And that's one of the things that American manufacturers, and specifically General Motors, struggled with, is understanding the intangibles of what makes European cars, Mercedes, BMW, attractive to younger buyers, that sense of control and solidity. And it sounds like they hit it here. I've got a thought on that at the end.
Catera's interior appointments are an impressive cross between Opel and Cadillac, and the Catera leads its class in room. Safety features include dual airbags and an advanced seatbelt system. Seat-mounted side airbags are due before the first year's production ends. A multitude of large, rounded switchgear is well placed for the driver's easy use and convenience. Although it shares the Omega's dash and gauges, Catera adds volts and oil pressure readouts as well. Designed for long-distance comfort and firm support, the driver's bucket seat has standard 8-way power adjustments and manual controls for lumbar and side bolstering. A tilt wheel is also standard. Cadillac did change the Omega's automatic climate control. The Catera's system is much easier to understand. Driver and passenger can each set temperature, and a 3-stage filter keeps out dust and pollen. Even the glove box gets AC to keep film and food cool. An AM/FM cassette stereo is standard. Both an 8-speaker Bose system and a truck-mounted 12-disc CD changer are optional. The uniquely shaped power window controls activate one-touch up or down windows, both front and rear. And just when you thought you'd seen every type of cup holder imaginable, here's yet another one. The spacious rear seat has its own air ducts, a large armrest, and a novel 3-section seat back for loads of cargo versatility. Plus, the deep, flat trunk has an impressive 16.6 cubic feet of space, even with a full-size spare tire riding inboard.
So, let's talk about that interior. Mixed. I'm going to say it's mixed. Lots of attention to detail here. The rear seat, the huge trunk, which explains why the rear of it looks so long. So I don't think the dash looks quite prestigious. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I wouldn't have a complaint about it. Looks very Jaguar to me, which is not a bad thing, especially that center portion right there in front of the gear shifter. Air conditioning blowing into the glove compartment. That's interesting. But then they put the window controls down next to the gear shift. It's funny because when Saturn did that, people complained. When Cadillac does it, it's innovative. So that's not where they belong, in my humble opinion. That's where you spill drinks. Those shouldn't be down there. My big complaint is that when you look back earlier in this video and they show the gloved finger pressing the snow button, the whole thing flexes. When they pressed the HVAC right here, one of the buttons, the whole thing flexed. Okay? That is the kind of attention to detail that GM does not do well. And I remember doing this on the Oldsmobile Aurora, I think it was. Same thing, a competitor for the Lexus. And the dashboard flexed when you pressed the buttons. And that's the kind of little thing that buyers are like, this is just cheap, or it flexes to the point it actually breaks over time or comes loose. Overall, I kind of like this interior, but it gives me some of the same GM vibes from before.
Overall, we came away very impressed with our pre-production introduction to the Cadillac Catera. Cadillac is targeting customers with a Catera that significantly improves on the capable Opel Omega, but price is also critical. Expect Catera's sticker to start near $30,000 when it goes on sale next fall. If Cadillac meets that target, Catera will be a serious contender, introducing a new generation of buyers to a new style of Cadillac.
Okay, so what to say here? This is one of those cars, this is very much one of those cars that, let's say it's 1997, 1998, I've got the money for a compact luxury sedan. And I decide I want to buy American. I'm a GM loyalist. I like that Cadillac is finally giving me an option, and I go get this car. I think I would be completely satisfied with it. Comfy seats, contemporary dashboard, V6 power, competitive transmission, rear-wheel drive. It checks all the boxes. And it's got that solid feel, good enough acceleration, great brakes. There's a lot here where they're checking the numbers. And I think this would be a very fine car to own and enjoy if you never, ever drove a competitor. If you ever saw a BMW, a Mercedes, a Jaguar, an Acura, or maybe even some Lexi out there, suddenly this car starts to look a little more pedestrian. If you ever sit in your friend's BMW and the dashboard doesn't flex, all of a sudden this looks a little chintzy. And if you drive one of those other cars and you realize this is 200 or 400 pounds heavier and has less power, suddenly it doesn't look that great. And I think sales represented that, reflected that. Let's go back to that Lincoln LS. Now, that was a platform that shared with Jaguar, the S-Type, and I think it looks fantastic. I love that car, and it was described at the time as 3 Series power and 5 Series size. So you've got something that is bigger than this with more power. That's a much more compelling, and I think it's better looking, that's a much more compelling buying proposition. Now, I'm not comparing the prices here. This may be cheaper. So when you look at the Catera, the Cimarron, when GM literally took a Cavalier and just put a Cadillac badge on it. This is a much better option. And GM says, hey, Americans love European cars. Let's bring a European car here. But to me, this feels like this looks very much to me like they went to Europe and they found a car. They brought it here. They can check all these boxes and say, Americans are too stupid to know this is a rather pedestrian car, underpowered, overweight, but doesn't matter. It's got European handling, so people will buy it. They did buy some. My understanding is they sold about 20,000 a year, but for comparison, that Lincoln LS, which I think it only lasted one generation with a facelift, it sold about 40,000 a year. Catera was not a success, and the Caddy that zigs, because I've got to work that in, I think that's a little bit of a shame. GM just brought something over here and didn't really make it a true competitor. They just made it good enough. And that's a shame. This is one of the last Cadillacs, I feel, where GM just wasn't putting in that last 25% of effort they needed to. And after this, things started to get a lot better. Let me know your thoughts below. I appreciate y'all spending just a few minutes with me here today.